It's a travel day, but that doesn't mean a day off for Orange and Blue today. Cecil Lammy, Andrew Mason, Canned Rock Music in Indianapolis is where we have traveled for the NFL Scouting Combine. Mace, always a great part of the NFL calendar to get to the Combine, and always fun with you here in Indianapolis as we travel to Indy here on a Monday.
I was going to say, we're traveling to Indy. It's the magic of broadcasting. You'll see from our backgrounds that as we record this show, we're not in Indianapolis. Like, where we're recording the show is not Indianapolis.
Yes.
But where we are right now, as you watch this show, is the capital of the great state of Indiana.
Yeah, and let's go. It's I know people say like underwear Olympics and all that, Mace. I think that's just old. That's an old way of looking at things. This is a very important week, and it adds to our dream scenario here because there are some dreams that are going to come true at the Combine. And yes, it does matter. If it didn't matter, they wouldn't do it.
Yeah.
So I'll save my major Combine rant for probably Dover and Cecil, but like, come on, man, this is an important part of the calendar.
Well, it's a matter of saying what's the most important part. You see, people watch the workouts as we get toward the end of this week. You'll see them starting on Thursday, of course, on NFL Network. And yet that's not the most important part. Now, you like it because it gives you a chance for at least the players that do work out. You get some standardized test scores on the field in a relatively controlled environment at Lucas Oil Stadium. But what really matters from this week is what you don't see. What matters is the interview process, teams going through and getting their 15 minutes with a slew of teams there in luxury suites at the stadium. What matters is the medical. Like, some of these players will go through 32 medical checks from 32 different teams.
Right.
And getting information there. And that's what we end up kind of learning more about down the line. The medical, we tend not to find out a lot until you get closer to the draft. And quite often, if a player does fall, you talk about risers and fallers, they're not really rising and falling based on second looks at the film. Occasionally, They'll rise and fall based on a workout, or a workout will cement something, like with Bo Nix last year with the Broncos. The individual workout cemented how much Sean Payton liked him once he got a chance to work with him. But if you see something where, this player went from round 1 to round 5, usually it's a medical thing that happens, something, a red flag that showed up there that could affect his career. And then another few times it is, okay, we interviewed him, we got a chance to be around him in person. This just wasn't our kind of guy.
Mm-hmm.
Now, players can rise because maybe they're able to answer questions about character concerns coming into the process. Maybe they give the types of responses, they show the type of growth that reveals that, okay, they're not going to be a problem in the pros the way things were in college. I mean, I guess a good example would be, someone like Micah Parsons with the Dallas Cowboys. There were an awful lot of character questions about him coming out of Penn State. We're sitting here 4 years later and nothing's happened.
Yeah, zero
Nothing's
questions.
happened except he's gone on
one of your best leaders.
Well. Yeah.
Yeah. So the guy you had questions about is now like, why aren't we doing more? He's like leading the way for the charge. So questions, answers, dream scenarios is the topic of today's program. And the dream scenario for me, Mace, I hope I don't bore you ever, my friend, but he's the Boise State running back, Ashton Jeanty. Yeah. That's my first dream scenario. And the all-purpose yards that you could bring, I say 1,500. That's what Alvin Kamara had as a rookie. Now, he was a third-round rookie, but a first-round rookie, number 20, maybe move up a little bit, 16, 15, whatever you want to talk about. I think for me, if we're talking dream scenarios, we're talking combine players that we're going to see, that's who it is for me personally. That's the number one dream for me this offseason, honestly.
Yeah, and he is I think we can say this with certainty. he's one of the two guys that I think if you got him in there could most profoundly affect the win-loss total this year.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
I'd say he's one, and then the other would be if you nail tight end. So, I mean, let's just hypothetically say, okay, Tyler Warren, right? Tyler Warren could mean another win or two.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Ashton Jeanty probably, if he worked out, if you picked him and he succeeded, I mean, he could really mean 2 or 3 wins that you didn't get last year. The other thing that happens, of course, with Ashton Jeanty, I think my dogs, you can hear in the background,
yes,
they're responding to Ashton Jeanty. We talked about, the defense helping Bo Nix helping the defense on an earlier show. Well, to go back to the old Sean Payton thing, what are the things that can support a young quarterback? It's defense and a running game. You get Ashton Jeanty in there. Not only is he a good pass catching target, so you can do some joker things with him in that part of the game. He had a very nice receiving season in 2023 for Boise State as well. But he can be that power gear in the offense that you've lacked. He can be, if you want him to be, he can be all things. Now, I expect, knowing Sean Payton, the way he operates with running backs, you'd still see 2 running backs getting time. I mean, he had Reggie Bush, number 2 overall pick back in 2006, and Reggie Bush was part of a timeshare. That's just kind of that's how Sean Payton rolls. What it probably means is if Ashton Jeanty came to the Denver Broncos, I think they would give him the type of workload that would probably extend his career. And maybe you'd be talking about, knock on wood, barring major injuries, an 8 to 10 year type run if you got him in there, which is another thing to think about if Jeanty happens to fall through the first round. Let's play real quick what Daniel Jeremiah of NFL Network last week said about Ashton Jeanty when he was asked about him during his extensive conference call with a lot of media, including myself.
Ashton Jeanty is my 3rd player in the draft, so I am a huge believer in his. I think he is extremely high floor to go along with an extremely high ceiling. I think he's a special player. The interesting part is, and just a lot of this comes from talking to people around the league, is because of the depth of the class, and it's really good. That, man, if you have multiple needs, maybe you could see a scenario where teams are going to punt on running backs early, and then just know that I still got some options there on day 2, and that's with the full appreciation that there is more love for running backs around the league after this last season, with all those free agents. All the leading rushers in the league were all free agents that showed their value, and then we've seen with some of these young backs in the league what they've done, led by Jahmyr Gibbs.
And so that's the interesting thing. Despite Ashton Jeanty, just take his rankings right there. He's got Jeanty as his number 3 player in the entire draft.
Mm-hmm.
And yet Jeanty won't go 3rd. Jeanty may not even go in the top 10. I don't think he falls to 20. I think that's a stretch. But he could fall to a point where maybe you do think about a trade up if you don't have to give up too much. But Jeremiah made the point, and we've talked about this over and over again. It is such a deep running back class that you're going to be able to find guys into day 2 and day 3. I think it's fun to talk about Ashton Jeanty, no doubt. And I understand why he's your dream guy. I think for a lot of people watching this, he's a dream prospect to bring in. But you're also weighing it relative to where the draft stands in terms of what you can acquire at other positions. Tight end is a very good position as well, but probably not as voluminous in terms of the number of players you can get who can immediately help into day 2 as running back is. Like, when word came down last week that the Bears were going to make Gerald Everett a cap casualty, I put out on social media the thought that, okay, Everett might be a nice little bridge to a tight end if you decide to wait for day 2 and talk about the Harold Fanning Jr., Elijah Arroyo guys, because those are players that I think need a longer runway compared to Colston Loveland, Tyler Warren in the first round at tight end. But at running back, when you start talking about the Travion Hendersons, You start talking about Devin Neal. You talk about RJ Farmer, someone who has some joker traits. Omarion Hampton, if you go late first, early second on him, these are all players that they'll go after Jeanty, but they could all be plug and play guys stepping in right away. I think the plug and play running backs, I think you may even start going into early day 3 with the Brashard Smith out of SMU being somebody that you might be able to plug and play and get something out of him right away.
Oh, we're going into day 3 almost with this running back class. It's simply outstanding. But Jeanty, to me, Mason, you heard Daniel Jeremiah say it. Jahmyr Gibbs. Guess what Jahmyr Gibbs works in? A committee.
Yeah.
So the committee thing, and man, 2 shows in a row, I'm going to cuss Mike Evans. But Mike Evans and the fellas were talking about like 300 carries. Memo. He's not going to get 300 carries. Okay. Yeah. That was his college workload. His pro workload will be much different. It'll be 1,500 all-purpose yards, but it will not be, or is unlikely to be, I should say, 1,500 rushing yards, especially for Sean Payton. Mm-hmm. Alvin Kamara is awesome. Alvin Kamara's never had a 1,000-yard rushing season.
Yes. Now he's gotten to 1,500 yards from scrimmage.
His first year he did.
Yeah. Did his second year as well, right?
Yep.
But you look at, say, 2018, the year that should have been for the New Orleans Saints, if not for a terrible no call on what should have been pass interference that would have gotten the Super Bowl. That year, 275 touches for Alvin Kamara over 16 games, 159 touches for Mark Ingram playing 12 games.
Mm-hmm.
So, and then, so that's sort of what you're looking at here, right? I mean, Ingram as the number 2 guy, still getting about 12 touches a game, or 11 touches a game, I should say.
Yeah. So is that Audric Estime? Or is that your second back?
Ooh.
Is it another rookie? Are you going double rookies? Are you okay with that? I'm okay.
Well, this is where, I mean, do we have the conversation about Blake Watson again?
He'd be a nice guy to get 7, 8, 9, 10 touches to a game, especially as a converted receiver. He is an elite receiver who plays running back.
Yes. And then you have a small handful for Jaleel McLaughlin as your kind of small change of pace guy.
Mm-hmm. We'll see.
Yeah, we'll see. We'll see. We are fixing to find out. But the one thing that we do know is it won't be 3 as a primary, trying to figure out who the hot hand is among 3. That was something Sean Payton talked about, how he struggled with down the stretch when he was, okay, is it going to be Audric Estime? Is it going to be Javonte Williams? Is it going to be Jaleel McLaughlin? Trying to go through 3 and figure out who was the hot hand. Even though Jaleel McLaughlin emerged more often than the other 2 as the hot hand as the games went on, it's not Jaleel's best role. I think it just showed that, to me, it showed that they were getting more out of Jaleel's skill set. They were getting every drop out of his skill set and maybe weren't getting every drop out of Javonte Williams' skill set.
Right. We'll see if the dream can come true. Dream scenarios for the Denver Broncos this offseason for me, Mace, and I'll hog the beginning of the show. Apologies. It's paying Cortland Sutton.
Okay.
Paying Cortland Sutton. That's why we used the beautiful thumbnail that we did to begin the show, because it's like, that was Friday's show, excuse me, but like, it's paying Cortland Sutton. That's part of the dream. I want to see that happen. We want to see help at inside linebacker. And I guess I should ask you, what are your dream scenarios for the Broncos, that is?
Help at inside linebacker. I think if you find another starter, whether it's a Zach Bond or Nick Bolton, I think you can flip a coin. There are positives and negatives to each of them. I mean, I think with Zach Bond, I wonder what he's going to be like not having the Philadelphia Goliaths in front of him. With Nick Bolton, I wonder if we've already seen peak Nick Bolton, because this past year didn't match up to some of his earlier work. And so that's a concern I have. Are you getting Nick Bolton when maybe he's a little bit of a decline starting? Or is it just a case where he just kind of needs to kind of freshen things up, have a little bit more on his plate, go somewhere else? I mean, That's the job of the scouts. That's what you've got to get into. That's why you're going to have, you got to make a decision that might be a tough one. Now with Zach Bond, of course, Sean Payton knows him pretty well, was part of bringing him in New Orleans in 2021. So if the Broncos get Zach Bond, even though Bond didn't really emerge as an every down player until he got to Philadelphia, and of course, he was in New Orleans for longer after Sean Payton moved on. So Payton wasn't around for how at least the on-field use of him on the defensive side stalled. It might have worked out differently if Sean Payton had stayed. Maybe Bond would have gotten on the field more and been a starter in New Orleans. Who's to say?
Right.
But that's an interesting thing to look at because the Broncos do clearly know Zach Bond very well. And he knows the Broncos and he knows certainly Sean Payton very well. If the Broncos sign him, I would be shocked if it didn't succeed fabulously. Like that, That's the thing. Like if they sign Zach Bond, then I think that ends up being a home run. That's one where I'll say I would trust their judgment. Trust their judgment from the knowledge they have.
Yeah, and there's no guarantees in life or in sports, but that one seems like a pretty good guarantee. Like you're going to get outstanding play from a player that you know and you trust. And it seems like your dreams, Mace, have a chance of becoming more reality. They will get a running back. And if it's Travion Henderson, I'm going to be over the moon. And if it's Devin Neal, I'm going to be over the moon. Like they're going to get a running back or two. They're going to get a tight end or two. But your inside linebacker situation, your dream, it seems like that could be more of a reality because it's the football business, or should I say the business of football? It's actually the relationship business.
Well, the thing is with running backs, no, we say 2 and 2 in the draft, but would you add one in free agency too?
Sure.
Okay.
That whole room could be replaced.
Do you think you could get Aaron Jones for the same type of contract that he had with Minnesota last year, $7 million?
Based on what he did in Minnesota, probably not.
Okay.
But George Payton's going to know
his price goes division. Up.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Okay. Well, but here's the problem with that. Let's have this conversation. Aaron Jones' price may not go up because of this running back class.
Yeah.
The streets are going to be cold. There's going to be some free agent running backs. Maybe it's Najee Harris. Maybe it's Aaron Jones. There's going to be one of these guys. I would, if I was an agent, I would be recommending my running back clients sign as soon as possible. Yeah. Because teams start sniffing around this combine. Teams are going to start sniffing around them RBs, and they're going to be like, you know what? We don't need to pay Aaron Jones because there's a new Aaron Jones. His name's Rashard Smith. Like there's teams that are going to go, hey, rookie contract. Why do we pay?
The interesting thing, like if let's say you decide to make a play for Nick Chubb coming off all the injuries, you'd say, oh, is Chubb the insurance policy in case you don't get a running back in the draft? Perhaps, or maybe the draft running back is the insurance policy on Nick Chubb if he's never all the way back.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
But yeah, like that's, I think if you're a running back, you got to grab the bag as quick as you can.
Yes.
Because there aren't going to be many bags to be had. And again, if you go through the combine, let's say the Broncos sit down with 5 running backs at the combine, wouldn't surprise me if they did. And they get a good feeling about 4 of those 5 to stack on the conversations that their scouts have had with running backs at the Shrine and Senior Bowls with, guys like Corey Krosky-Merritt, guys like Bashard Smith, they basically talk with all of them, right?
Mm-hmm.
If you get that feeling, you say, okay, wow, there's 10 running backs we like here who could help us out. At that point, you probably say, we'll pass on free agency. Or if we pass, we'll pass until it gets to wave 3, and then we'll take a look and see what's there. Because again, if the market is what you and I are talking about, who's to say Raheem Mostert isn't there a couple weeks in?
Oh, it almost seems, I'm not saying certain that he would be there, but yeah, he might be there. Nick Chubb might be a wave 3 free agent.
I mean, we might even be talking about some of these guys not signing until after the draft.
Mm-hmm. August, somebody gets hurt. Hey, Nick Chubb signed.
Look, I mean, we saw it with at safety with Justin Simmons last year, right?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Now, of course, the thing is, you've also got running back returning to a level of primacy and importance that is starting to approximate what it once had in team building. So I think that comes into play too.
Copycat league. You don't want to do what Saquon did.
Right. But what is your best path to get another Saquon? Frankly, I think it's looking at the draft, and unless you can get Aaron Jones, I think maybe you don't want to pay too much for Aaron Jones coming off, as he's on the other side of 30, but consistently productive and looking like he still has some gas left in the tank. I think he's gone pretty quickly. He's almost, you'd say, the guarantee on the box of the market. If we're going to make a Tommy Boy reference,
we always make Tommy Boy references. Yes. Yeah. Him way to come out. He's just a little guy. So many. There's so many.
Oh,
so many running backs at the scouting combine.
How about wide receivers? Cortland Sutton you want back, and I think it makes sense to bring back Cortland Sutton.
Okay.
Sean Payton has, of course, said that has indicated that they probably like their receivers better than maybe the public does. So I don't think that's something where it's pressing where you have to bring somebody in. But this is a position where I think, sort of like with Josh Reynolds last year, you wait and see what the market is like after the first week. See what it looks like and see what value you can get there.
You want to break some hearts today?
Sure.
We're going to find out in Indy how much of this is real, but I'm hearing Tez Johnson in the second. You're not taking Tez Johnson in the second.
Tez Johnson's not a Denver Bronco.
Exactly.
I mean, I'll put on the hat and try to be a little festive, but it's kind
of. Are you like
sad.
the Swami? Right? Yeah. You can make predictions into the future.
Maybe I should. Maybe it should be my prediction hat.
Yes, do the old Johnny Carson, man. Get the envelope, right? What is Tez Johnson in the second, right? You know what I mean? You should do that. That means I would be your Ed McMahon. Yes, sir. Yes,
Hi-yo.
You are correct. Hi-yo.
You are correct, sir. Yes. Although at this point, I think the Dana Carvey impression of Ed McMahon is more remembered than actual Ed McMahon.
Yep. Yeah. Just like first President Bush, that imitation is known more than people remembering 1,000 points a lie, right? That wasn't W. That was the OG, George Bush.
Or Dana Carvey as Tom Brokaw remembered more than Tom Brokaw.
It happens. It happens. Dream scenarios.
Our old Ford dead today.
Dream scenarios for the Denver Broncos. Any other smaller dreams, side quests?
Side
quests. The dreams.
Okay. I want to see. I know it's sort of the shiny object skill positions. I would prefer to see running back or tight end crossed off the list in round 1. So that's where you're talking about Colston Loveland, Tyler Warren, potentially Ashton Jeanty if he falls. I'll tell you, I will also say this. I could be sold on trading down and getting a Marion Hampton later and stacking some more picks so you can also address defensive line relatively soon, maybe not in round 1, but hey, if you could move down 5 to 10 picks and get a 3rd round pick, and then you're looking at 3 day 2 picks instead of 2, then maybe I'm going 2 defensive linemen on day 2.
Mm-hmm. It's that type of class.
I think Daniel Jeremiah said it best last week when he said this is a starter's draft, that maybe it doesn't have at the top, maybe it's not the best in those first 5 to 10 picks, but as you go through this draft, there are starters to be had all over the place. I think it'd be a good year to have a lot of day 2 picks. I like day 2 better than day 1 in terms of the offerings there relative to the value of the pick.
And I'm glad you said move back 5 spots for a Marion Hampton, and I will dig more on this in Indy, but I think he goes late first. I think the Barkley bump is actually for Hampton. It's not for Jeanty. It's for Hampton because he will get drafted in the 1st round. Now, again, I'll check around, but I'm just picking up on some things of there's going to be 2 running backs in the 1st round. So if you wait too long for Hampton, he's going bye-bye.
Go on. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And he can catch the ball. He can be a joker.
He's incredible. He's incredible. I said to Javonte when he came out, Mace, I think I'm wrong. I think he's better, and not the Javonte we have today, the broken one, but like I think he's better than that. I think he's almost Nick Chubb levels, and I love Nick Chubb. Like loved Nick Chubb coming out of Georgia.
Wow.
Yeah, that's what Hampton is. So don't think you can get him early second. He might go first. Stay tuned to find out.
Yes. Well, we're fixing to find out. I think we'll learn a little more next week.
That's right. This week.
This week.
Yes.
And I just revealed, hey, we recorded this.
Don't pull back the curtain.
Oh,
never mind the man behind the curtain.
Yeah.
What a twist that was, Wizard of Oz.
People would have probably gotten a hint by what we were wearing because we didn't change clothes from last Friday. Maybe we're just caught at the cusp of a new wash cycle, as George Costanza once said.
All right, Mace, before we're out of here, we got business to attend to in Indianapolis. Stay tuned for lots and lots and lots and lots of coverage.
Yep.
We're going to have your best coverage on the Denver Broncos, the best coverage on the NFL Scouting Combine. It's Andrew Mason. It's Cecil Lammy. It's Orange and Blue Today. So helping us out on the YouTube channel includes what, my friend?
Liking.
Commenting.
Sharing.
Subscribing.
And hitting that notification bell. That's not a ding. It's a thump.
So that you never
miss
a vid. That's right. He's Andrew Mason. You follow him on all the socials at Mace Denver. I'm at Cecil Lammy saying OBT's BFD. Thanks for watching. Stay tuned. Stay frosty.